Okay, so I am going to start the arc, and a couple that are still going to join, but that is going to take some time, but I'm going to get onto it and start so long. This obviously was an idea that I had fairly recently. Lockdown has been really something else for all of us. And yeah, it's, sorry, I just don't know what is going on here. Let me just stop that quickly. Sorry. Screen share this one. Okay, so yeah, so obviously lockdown has been quite crazy for everybody, and there are still restrictions and there's second waves going on all over the world. But I wanted to share something that has stuck out to me during lockdown. And yes, lockdown has been terrible, and COVID and the pandemic has been terrible, and a number of people have passed on due to the virus, and a number of people are still getting infected on a daily case every single day. But from my side, it has helped me in a way to realize different things, not only about myself, about my life, but also about safaris and how we run safaris. So this idea came from a couple of weeks back. We've been fortunate as a company to be able to have traveled during the COVID time, not with guests, but to travel to different lodges, to gather content and to put content together for the lodges as well for ourselves for marketing material. So we visited Sabi Sabi, we visited Umlani and the Timavati, we visited Tswalu and the Kalahari, all amazing experiences. And one of the experiences that I did want to share with all of you was one that started the whole idea of reconnecting with nature. So a couple of weeks back, I went to Umlani, just myself. My brother's actually a manager and a guide there. There wasn't anyone in camp, and I went to Umlani. I took some camera gear, but I went with the mindset of not posting on social media, not sharing anything like we normally do on Instagram, and just to pretty much completely disconnect from the outside world, the pandemic and everything that's going on. I mean, we all have different issues. We all struggle with different things. And especially during these times, the pandemic, during lockdown, you get stuck in certain routines, which is a good and a bad thing. And I just found myself really missing the bush, but also really just trying to think of how I can connect with the bush. How can I change my experience in the bush? How can I change the experience that I give guests in the bush? And I went with this complete open mindset of just to take it in. If I wanted to take a picture, lift up my camera, take a picture, and move on. And what I got from the experience was so much more. I can honestly tell you that in 13 years of guiding, 9 of which were full-time guiding, that I found a way to connect with the bush in a way that I never have before, which is crazy, right? I mean, sitting here telling you that after being surrounded in the bush my entire life, I mean, from ever since I can remember, I've been involved in the bush and visiting the bush, and to now suddenly see it in a completely different way, it's really, really exciting. And I hope that I get to share that with all of you when I'm out on safari again with you. But I went obviously with the mentality to connect in a different way, but I didn't want to put too much pressure on that connection, because obviously if you look for something too hard, there's a good chance that you're not going to find it. And a couple of days went past, and it was really, really nice. I was really enjoying my time, really being able to, it's not always necessarily about the big moments and having action and a lot going on. Yes, that's great. But for me, I find that often now it's the small moments in between. So it's something as simple as listening to a specific bird that calls at a specific time of the day, and being, that's a white-browed robin chat calling early in the morning. Beautiful. So it's noticing those small things. But there was a very big moment that changed my thought process completely. And what had happened is happened one morning, myself and my brother Greg, so it was only us two on the vehicle. We found leopard tracks, and we were tracking. It must have been for 2 hours. It was not far out of camp that we found the tracks. And as all of you know that have been on safari, it can be quite frustrating when it comes to tracking, but it is all part of the process. And when you do find that animal, it makes it just that much more special. So we tracked this animal, and we tracked and we tracked and we tracked. And the tracks came up to quite a large waterhole. And we could see where he had gone, and he had had a bit of a drink and then got up and moved off, but we were struggling to find direction. And now the car from us was quite far away. I would say it was probably about 50, 60 meters away from us. And the wind started picking up, and we were walking around in circles, and we were talking. We were discussing, this is the direction he came from. Where would he normally go from here? My brother knows the area quite well, and he knows the individual leopards quite well. So he has a good idea of their movements, especially if they are on a territorial patrol. And we were sitting there, and we were hunched over looking at the last tracks and trying to see where he went from there. It was relatively muddy, but also quite hard. So it was difficult to pick up the pad mark. And we were sitting there, and the next thing we just heard was, and we looked up to the right-hand side of us, a herd of about 30 odd elephants. We were walking slowly towards the waterhole. So we thought, okay, take it easy. And now for me, I have the deepest respect for elephants. I have been charged by elephants on foot as well as in the vehicle. I've seen videos of what they do to vehicles, and it is not fun. So I am very, very wary when it comes to elephants. So I said to my brother, let's back away, check the wind. The wind's in our favor. Let's remove ourselves and go get the car and carry on from there. So he said, right, let's do that. We turned around and we started to walk. And as we started to walk, another herd of about 20 odd elephants coming in our direction. So now we stuck, and it's a big open clearing. Now we stuck at this waterhole with elephants approaching from both sides. There's no escape route. And I won't lie, I sat there and my heart started to beat faster and faster and faster. And then suddenly, it was the strangest thing. I completely relaxed. My brother completely relaxed. These elephants were approaching us. Yes, we had a rifle with us, but they were approaching us, firstly, number one, which is a good thing. The second set of elephants had our scent, so they knew we were there. And I just remember Greg saying to me, Trevor, sit down. Now you've got a herd, or two herds amounting to 50 odd elephants approaching you, and you get told to sit down. So we sit down. I took a deep breath. And they always say that animals can obviously pick up on your emotion, your feeling, how you are feeling, and they react to that. And after this day, I truly believe that. My brother and I sat down next to each other, completely quiet. And these elephants must have come to within 5 meters of us on either side. And they lifted their trunks. They were smelling us. There was no aggression signs whatsoever from them. We sat, we watched them, we listened to the sound of them drinking water, the droplets coming out their mouth, hitting the water. And we must have sat for about 15, 20 minutes like that. And I cannot tell you how relaxed I was. My heartbeat was normal. I was completely relaxed. I actually sat there with a smile on my face. And to have that experience and to connect with animals in that way, was something truly special. It may sound very silly to all of you, but for me, that was a big moment. Driving down, I had obviously the idea in my mind that I wanted to develop this connection with nature, and how do I go about doing that? And the best way to go about doing that is just to be you, to be present and show your emotion, whether it is fear or not. Obviously the guide then makes adjustments accordingly, but the biggest thing to me, and what I've realized over a number of years, is that animals aren't out there to get us. They're not there to just randomly come and kill you unless you really do something wrong. Animals will generally always give you a warning sign. And on this particular day, my brother and I, both as calm as can be, my brother has had intense experience with elephants, so he also does have a fear of them. But to be able to sit there quietly, both of us smiling with big smiles on our face, elephants 5 meters away from us on either side, they then moved around us, they greeted each other behind our backs, and we are still sitting on our backsides on the ground. They greeted each other. And what really stood out to me was there was a moment where majority of the herd were all rumbling at the same time, and it was just this surround sound vibration through your body. It was absolutely incredible, and that is the connection that I was looking for. That to me, no picture will ever be able to describe. And I'm not saying photography isn't important. I'll get into that shortly. But from that moment onwards, I started to pick up and realize different things in nature, and connect with them in different ways. So I'm going to pull this up. Okay, so this is what we're going to cover. So obviously there's a number of these points that all have a very similar meaning with one another. My photographic journey, why I left full-time guiding. So that ties in. I've added that into the slideshow, just because it kind of ties into this experience that I've just explained to all of you. So I was a full-time guide for just over 9 years. I guided for just over 4 years at Londolozi. My first year of guiding, I did not own a camera. I wanted to focus on my guests and my ethics and my guiding ability, and make sure that I was comfortable in my guiding ability before I moved on to photography or anything else for that matter. So I bought my first camera. It was a little point of shoot after a year of guiding. And the main reason why I started photography was for the memories. It's not to sell images. It's not to impress anybody else. The sole purpose why, even to this day, I pick up my camera is for a memory for myself. Yes, being in the company that we're in, we use it for marketing material, but you can often see on social media, when you're scrolling through different images, you can see what image someone has an emotional attachment with and what image someone has just picked up their camera and taken a photograph. So it's something that I'm very, very conscious about. Why I left guiding full time? Well, for me, the bush is all I've known. The bush has been my whole life for a number of years. It's something that I'm extremely passionate about. It's something that is very dear to my heart. And I worked alongside some guides who were in their 40s, 50s, had wives, had kids, and absolutely hated game drive. And they were people just like me that absolutely loved the bush and were so passionate about the bush. And it got to the point where they got up in the morning and they did game drive for the sake of doing game drive. And I never wanted it to get to that point. I wanted to leave the bush with the same passion that I had when I first started guiding. And I can comfortably say that that is probably one of the best decisions that I've made, because I'm still as passionate today, if not more passionate about the bush than I ever was. So I left. Obviously, there are moments where I look back and I think, oh, I wish I could wake up for morning game drive now and take guests out on safari. But I do still get those opportunities. And yes, this year's been quite crazy, but it has allowed us to get some bush time. And hopefully in the near future, we're going to be traveling again, and we're going to be seeing new and exciting places, and we're going to be sharing that with all of you. Coming back to my photographic journey though, I have the small point and shoot camera. All I wanted it for was to take photos for memories. And it was probably one of the cheapest cameras on the market, this tiny little point and shoot, where something would happen, I would press the shutter down and the animal would disappear and the photo would go chick, and I would look and it was nothing. So it wasn't anything close to the top of the range. So I did get quite frustrated at times with it. But what I found is that I started to enjoy it more and more. And as a guide, I started saving up money and I bought the best equipment that I had at the time. a DSLR camera, basically kit lens, everything. I spent all my savings on this camera, put it all together and said, right, let's go take photographs, and suddenly realized that I had zero idea of how to take photographs other than on auto. And that's where YouTube and practice came came hand in hand. I spent many hours in my garden practicing and playing around with my camera. And from there started to take it out on safari with me and capture the moments. And even to this day, during lockdown, I mentioned in another webinar that I've done, during this lockdown, it's given me a great chance to go back to images that I've taken 9 years ago and to relive those moments and those experiences. And that's the whole purpose why I got into photography. Yeah, finding the balance. So we talk about photography, we talk about nature, we talk about reconnecting with the bush. So what am I talking about? Yeah, this is a little bit overboard. Okay, this was a bit of a joke picture that we took a picture of at Sabi Sabi, all the gear that we had to gather content. And it is right, it's about finding the balance. So what I'm talking about here is that we all have to understand and decide for ourselves. So this whole webinar and talking about reconnecting with the bush, it may not apply to you, but I just want you to think about everything that we discussed in this webinar. So photography is obviously a very important part of a safari in many different ways. So it can be for conservation, it can be for anti-poaching purposes, it can be for the memories, but there's a very fine line, and you've got to find a balance. For me, I'm big on the experience point of view, so I am more on the side of taking 10 images, putting your camera down and enjoying the moment and absorbing what is going on, as opposed to an individual who will take 500 images of exactly the same thing I look at. And the whole reason why I bring that up is because cameras are amazing and the technology is incredible, but every single time you lift that camera up to your face, you are disconnecting from the bush. You may not agree with me, but your camera disconnects you from the bush. So how do you use the bush in a positive way? So how do you use the bush in a positive way with your photography? So when I take a photograph, okay, now we obviously do these trips, these small intimate trips with guests. And yes, it's not about us, it's not about our photography. It's about us sharing our knowledge, not only about photography, but about our experiences, pretty similar to what I'm doing here now with you. It's obviously a very different scenario when it's a guest who it's their first time safari, they've got this camera gear and they want to take as many photos as they want for the experience, because they might not get another opportunity. And I completely understand that. But for me, photography has to be linked to the passion that you have for wildlife and for the reason why you are on safari. And photography, we need to have individuals like myself, and I'm not being arrogant or anything. Obviously, the rest of the team that I work with is also incredible, but you have individuals like us to help you get the best out of your photography. So I always tell guests, when you pick up a camera and you take a picture, why did you pick up your camera? What is the reason? Is it because you drove into a sighting and there's a leopard standing in the open? And that's fine. You can pick up your camera, take a photograph. But for me, I will always try and feel the scene first, feel the emotion that I'm looking at. Is it a leopard in a tree? Is it a beautiful sunset? What is the highlight of my photograph? What feeling does that scene or does that subject give me? And once I've decided that, it sounds like a lot going through the mind, but once I've decided that, I'll then pick up my camera and I'll take a photo, and I'll obviously adjust my settings as best I can to capture what I'm seeing with my eye, so that a viewer looking at my image can feel that emotion that I felt in that moment. And it's also a good reminder to tell guests as well to often put down your camera. You know, as opposed to taking 100 photographs of a lion sleeping in the grass, put down your camera and just really feel where you are and take it all in, because I think a lot of us get caught up with a variety of different things, whether it's things that are going on at home, whether it's things that are going on in your company, whether it's social media and you have to get this posted and you have to do this and it needs to be done now. That doesn't need to be done at all now. What needs to be done when you come on safari is you need to take a break from that. You need to take a break from everything, if possible. I'm not saying that if you have an urgent meeting that you can't do that, but there are 24 hours in a day. We host safaris that are a week, sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes even longer. So there is definitely time for that. But what I'm saying here is that you need to find what connects you to nature. What do you enjoy most about going on safari? Is it waking up early in the morning and listening to the birds? Is it understanding your camera more and being able to adjust your settings and take 1,000 less shots than you did on your previous trip? Is it to capture images through your camera that display and depict exactly what you're looking at so that whoever else sees the image can feel what you felt when you sat in the game viewer? I hope that's all making sense. Be present. Okay, this is an important one. It sounds silly. All of these sound silly, but be present. We see it all the time on safari, and I'm not saying that we haven't been guilty of it in the past either, but, especially when it comes to social media and things, but be present. So what do I mean by be present? Being present is being focused, being in the moment. And it's quite funny because we had a meeting, like a motivational meeting yesterday in the office. And one thing Gerry said really stuck out to me, and it was focusing on the small things. Especially after the year that we have all had, and this doesn't necessarily only apply to wildlife, but appreciate and focus on the small things. We live in a day and an age where things have to be done. They have to be done now, and nothing else can wait. Everything's got to be done. Go do it, wake up tomorrow, start again, do it all over again, and carry on with life. But be present. So what does this mean on safari? This means that there isn't always a photographic opportunity, and that's not something to be upset about. It's actually a good thing. Being present is sitting there and understanding what you're watching, understanding what you are hearing, being silent. That's all being present. That's all taking in your surroundings. Yes, you may not get an image. And for me, photography and having an image is a big part of having those memories. But if you find what connects you to the bush, and you can do that on every safari that you go on, your safari experience will go from here to here, and that's a guarantee. I say that's a guarantee because I've recently returned from a trip to Madikwe where I had an incredible safari. It wasn't that we saw phenomenal things, but I pretty much sat on the vehicle there, obviously helping guests take photos and everything, but also talking about this kind of stuff. Be present. If it's something simple at a coffee stop, pick up a stone, feel it, feel the sand, feel a branch, feel the grass. Be present. Just acknowledge what you're looking at, where you are, how privileged you are to be in that position. Realize where you are. So this comes into what I've just been talking about. You'll see each of these different layers all refer to pretty much the same thing. So here's a male lion. So for example, you put in here for a sighting, he's sitting up beautifully. The picture that you want is there's two different pictures that you can go for here. You can go for a slightly wide shot, including his tail, have his head looking at you with both his ears pricked and his eyes open. Beautiful shot. There's also, looking at the very left-hand side here, there's a very, very big lens attached to that camera, so that you would be looking more at close-up shots. So waiting for him to turn his head, look at you once again, ears up, looking at you with both eyes open, nice portrait orientation, close-up of a male lion with a beautiful mane. But what next? What next? You find, and it's happened before on many safaris, I'll sit there and guests will just fire away, fire away, fire away, fire away. The lion turns his head slightly, looks away from you, fire away, fire away, fire away, fire away. That's not realizing where you are. that is just taking a photograph for the sake of taking a photograph. And I can guarantee you that 99% of those photographs that you take, you are going to delete. And I know with certain things that I'm talking about here, you may, like I say, disagree with, but this is my opinion, this is how I feel, and this is what I have experienced. So for me, we sit here on a vehicle, we discuss the line, we discuss the perfect shot that we want. But we sit there, we're fortunate because on these safaris, we take our time in sightings and we sit there and we wait and see what happens next. Does he get up? Does he go for a drink of water? Does he roar? It's also a great time to take photographs with your cell phone, for example, or a video with your cell phone when he's moving. I found that recently, apart from gathering content with the bigger cameras, I'm using this, my phone, more than I ever have. And what I'm capturing on this means more to me than what I've been capturing on my camera, because what I'm capturing with this is the experience and the reconnecting with the bush that I've always been after. So in this situation, what do you do? Okay, yes, I took a selfie of me and the guests in the line, but this is a perfect time to say, let's sit in complete silence. Yes, it sounds weird. It feels like, especially as a facilitator, that you constantly need to be speaking to guests and saying, guys, this could be happening, that could be happening. Be prepared for this, do that, put your camera settings on this. And it's not us telling you exactly what to do. It's obviously just giving you a plan of what could happen. But what do you do once you've spoken about all of that? And you've got your shot of the male line looking at you. It is the perfect time to put your camera down, disconnect, forget what's happening at home, and be in the present. Realize where you are. Think of how special it is. Think of how many other people would love to be sitting in that seat looking at that line. I'm going to talk about appreciating the opportunities that we get. And now I obviously have this way of reconnecting with the bush. And as a full-time guide, I remember the pressure of having to find specific animals, especially being at Londolozi, world-renowned for its leopard viewing, and guests would come there solely to see a leopard, which in my opinion, firstly, okay, yes, it is good to have goals on your bucket list and things that you want to see. But what you've also got to appreciate are the opportunities that we get. These areas that we travel to are often remote, middle of nowhere, middle of Africa, Svalbard, middle of the ocean, ice, polar bears. And we as individuals, and it is very difficult, especially if it is your first and only ever trip that you're going to be able to do. But what you've got to understand is that the bush will always provide for you in a certain way. It's our way of what determines the experience and what determines how we enjoy our safari or our trip is the way that we interpret the bush. So I will never put pressure on myself again to find a specific animal, because the bush is what it is. And it's not all about one specific animal. Yes, if we find it, that is great. But the bush, no matter where you are, no matter what safari you are, no matter what expedition you are on, there is so much around us that we will drive past, that we won't listen to, that we will go on a boat and just go right on past without stopping and acknowledging. And that is the bush, or whatever it is, showing you something. And we as individuals need to learn to appreciate everything, because everything from grass to a leopard you can put together. There is a way of connecting the dots between red grass, for example, and a male leopard sleeping in a tree. There is a connection there. And we need to be able to accept the opportunities that the bush is willing to give us. And in doing this, I can guarantee you that you're going to have a much better safari, because you are developing this connection with your surroundings. Okay, it's not always about the picture. So this picture was taken in the Serengeti. Yes, it is Okay, this one's debatable. I probably shouldn't have used this in the slideshow because it is an insane image, but it's not always about the picture. So what happened on this specific day was we found lions in the morning. They climbed up onto the rocks. This was on Best of Serengeti Safari. This is one of the highlights of that safari, is getting leopards, lions, cheetahs sitting up on rocks like this. We do it normally earlier in the year, February, March, the rainy season, so it's a lot quieter. There's not many vehicles there. You get this beautiful dramatic sky. You have these massive granite boulders, and you have the opportunity to photograph these lions on the rocks. So I really like this picture, but for me, the memory from this trip and from this scene was when a male lion walked out and he lay on the rock where the one lioness is standing at the very top of the rock. I don't have a picture of that. I've got it in here, but I don't have a picture of that male lion lying there. Now imagine a male lion on his own with that dramatic, with dramatic clouds behind. Imagine the kind of picture you could have gotten. Why didn't I take a picture? Because I put my camera down. I was helping guests. Let's not stray away from that. I was helping guests, but I was also enjoying the moment, taking it in. Because like I mentioned earlier, you bring your camera up to your face, you disconnect completely from the scene and from that moment. And it's something that it is difficult to find a balance with, but it is possible. And you know, once you've taken a photograph, whether you're happy with that photograph or not. And if you're happy with that photograph, put your camera down. It may mean that you may miss a shot. It's not the end of the world. Do you miss a shot? Or do you remember a moment that'll last a lifetime? Which one do you go for? Yes, you can take the picture and have that memory for a lifetime, but by being present and focusing on your subject, focusing on what you're looking at without looking through a viewfinder, will always have a much more impact on you than it will looking at that memory through your camera. And don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against photography. I absolutely love it. I think it is a great way to capture memories. All I'm doing here and all I'm saying to you all is to dive a little bit deeper into your photography, finding that balance between taking a photograph and appreciating a scene. It's not always about what you see. This refers to what I was talking about appreciating what the bush has to show you. I'll go back a couple of years ago with a story. And I remember this as clear as anything. I had a guest that came for 8 nights. And this isn't bad mouthing a guest at all. This is just simply giving you an example of what people can be like. And where I want none of you to ever get, because once you pass that balance and you only photography, it is very difficult to come back and find your passion again. You literally have to stop taking photographs and try and reconnect with the bush all from the beginning. But once you cross that barrier and it's only about a photograph, then there's something wrong. Something really, really wrong. Anyways, back to my story. So I had a guest, 8 nights, private safari. I went up to the airstrip, collected him. On the way down to the camp, which is about a 5-minute drive, he said to me, Trevor, right, I'm here for a male lion drinking water at night. I want its reflection. I want a leopard in a tree, and I want to take a photograph of a leopard coming down the tree, and I want to take a picture of lionesses with cubs on a flat granite boulder in the Sand River. Those were his expectations from when he got off the plane, which for me at the time, I obviously tried to do as best I could, but that is the wrong mentality. So that's where this comes into play. It's not always about what you see. That's going with the mentality of you've got a photograph in mind and the photograph is the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter what else you see. And I can tell you from this story why it doesn't matter. Our third morning, I think, okay, just to quickly end that story, I think we maybe got 2 out of his 6 photographs that he really wanted to, but I realized what I'm talking about now, becoming too attached to your camera and too disconnected from the bush, I realized that on day 4 of the safari with this gentleman, when we found a mating pair of leopards. Now, to see one leopard in the wild is incredible. Normally, by nature, they're shy, they're elusive animals, and it's very difficult to see them. But in areas like the Sabi Sands, they have become more habituated to the vehicles, and it allows us to view them and to watch their behavior and understand their behavior a lot more. But this particular morning, we watched mating leopards for about 2 hours. And I'm not going to lie, it wasn't a very easy area. It was dense vegetation, so they were up and down and in and around a drainage line. And eventually, another vehicle, we were fortunate enough in that we were quite far away from everyone else, and another vehicle wanted to come in, and it was quite tricky for 2 vehicles there. So I decided, we've been here for 2 hours, we've had an amazing experience, we've seen them mate 10 times. What more can you ask for? Let's move out, go stop somewhere, have coffee, and just, embrace the morning that we've just had. And I reversed out and fist pumped my tracker who was sitting next to me, super happy, got onto the road, turned around, said, guys, well, how incredible was that? And he said to me, yeah, it was nice, but I didn't get a photograph. Now that to me is a problem. That is what I'm referring to when photography is taken too far, and it's taken too far away from the connection with the bush. We as individuals need to understand and find our own balance. And it can be different with each and every one of us, but we need to find our own balance between taking a photograph and connecting to the bush, and the right moment for both of those. When to take a photograph, when to rather sit and connect with the bush. So there's no one way of doing it and saying that this is what works for me, so it's going to work for you. It's you as an individual understanding why you're going on a safari. Yes, you want to take photographs, but understand where your balance is to connect and to be in the present and to be in the moment and to take in that emotion that you're feeling. Forget about everything that is on your mind. So this is something that I struggled with for quite a while. And even, we were fortunate enough to have the ability during lockdown as a team to go and visit, like I said, Sabi and Swalu. I went to the Timbabati twice. This is something that I struggled with a lot. And I've struggled with it a lot in the past. But forgetting everything that is on your mind. Now, for someone like me, it's virtually impossible. My mind is constantly busy, and especially in this day and age with work and deadlines and pressure, social media, all of that kind of stuff, there is a lot going on. But what we need to understand, and it's something that I only recently understood, was that when you get out into the field, there is nothing else that we can do. There's nothing we can do about what is going on at home. There is nothing we can do about an email that we have sent. There is nothing we can do about anything else going on. When we sit on that vehicle, there is nothing we can do about anything else our mind is thinking about. Okay, yes, some places have Wi-Fi and some places have signal. Very limited places have signal for cell phone when you're out in the field. But we need to find a way to say, right, I'm getting onto this vehicle, whatever's happened, whatever's going on at home, whatever's going on social media, however I felt about what happened last week, that does not matter. What matters is what I'm about to experience now, and really focus on what you're doing and where you are, and finding that appreciation for nature. And believe me, if you can do that, it is not an easy thing to do. It is not an easy thing to control your mind into telling it to forget about things, especially if they're big things on your mind, things, worrying things. It's very, very difficult. But what will mentally prepare you for when you go back, you can learn from the bush. The bush isn't just about going out and viewing animals and taking photographs of them in their natural environment. There is so much more to wildlife and the way that they interact with one another, the way that they interact within a pride with different species, the relationships between the vegetation and the animals and all of that. There is so much through that and animal behavior that we overlook that we can actually learn from and we can apply in our own lives. If you take the time to put your camera aside every now and then and to really take note of what is going on around you. Disconnect from the outside world, social media, we've just discussed that. Even this latest trip to Madikwe, I started posting stories and the Wi-Fi connection wasn't great and I was starting to struggle with them. And I said, you know what? No more. The cell phone is going away. Stop stories. For 4 days at Madikwe, we had some epic sightings. I didn't share a single one of them. Why? Because firstly, guests come first always on safari. And secondly, I wanted to focus on the now. I wanted to focus on the present, focus on my guests, focus on our experience that we were having. We had some quiet drives. I say we had quiet drives, but were they actually quiet? They were quiet because we didn't see a male lion, but they were refreshing because we managed to reconnect with a whole bunch of different things. We photographed birds for a whole afternoon. Some people hate it, but when you truly start to understand the bush and you start to accept what the bush is willing to show you, suddenly your view goes like this on safari to this. And I sound like I'm preaching, but I'm sharing just from my personal experience over the last couple of months and years of the way that I interpret the bush and how it has affected me and how it has helped me grow and keep that connection with the bush. And I can honestly say to this day that my passion for wildlife and for the bush is far greater than it's ever been before. Be in the now. Be present. And that is it from me, everybody. If you do have any questions, please let me know. I hope that you have enjoyed it. This is a topic that I love to talk about. My email address is at the bottom, so if you do want to get in touch or you do want to Zoom or Skype with me, you are more than welcome to. But yeah, so going forward, my mindset has absolutely changed in terms of my approach to safari, the information that I share with my guests, the experience that I'm wanting to deliver to my guests. It's not just about the photograph. It's not just about the destination. It's about connecting with wildlife, reconnecting, reestablishing the connection with wildlife. And, you know, the sad thing is a lot of us forget about it. We forget about how we felt when we first ever saw a lion. But that feeling isn't gone forever. That feeling can be discovered again. You've just got to find a way to reconnect and to appreciate it as if you were seeing it for the first time again. And I promise you that if you take this mindset into your next safari, wherever it may be too, and you take this advice that I've given you today, your safari experience is going to go from great to exceptionally phenomenal. And that is a promise. So I hope that you did enjoy this. I really enjoyed sharing it with all of you. Sorry about the mishap halfway through. But please do feel free to get in touch with me if you have any questions. But from my side, I'm going to say good night. I hope that you all enjoyed it. And yeah, hope to see you all on safari soon. Good luck out there. Thinking of you all. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening or morning or day. Thank you, everybody. Bye.